This is The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. Whether you're a seasoned real estate expert, a first-time home buyer, or if you're simply passionate about hearing small business stories, this is the podcast for you. Join us as we dive deep into the world of real estate and beyond.
Hi, I am Janine Igliani, your host of The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. This is episode 17, and I'm here with my co-host, Ryan Hatcher. And our guest today is Eric Perry with Eco Roofing Solutions, and we're super excited to have you here and to hear from you on this side. You know, we've been able to have the opportunity to work with you. You personally did one of my rental properties recently, which was really cool to get to experience kind of what that process looks like from an insider's perspective. And I will tell you, it was truly one of the best. Really, I was super impressed with the communication, the professionalism, and then just the quality of the work. And one of the things that I thought was really cool, because it is one of my rental properties, I have a tenant in there, your office staff offered to communicate with them directly too, which I thought was super cool. That's, like, in my opinion, going above and beyond. So
yeah,
thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah. Super excited.
So Eric, will you tell us kind of about where did you come from? Where did you grow up? And then ultimately what got you into roofing?
Yeah. So as condensed as I can make it, I've been roofing in Arizona for 25 years, so almost my whole life. I started out as a kid in my teens, mainly to help my dad. I'm a third generation roofer. So
that's cool.
Helping him just carry the ladder, just being the kid in the truck to minimize his efforts, probably somebody to hang out with him during the day.
Did you want to, or was he kind of, come Eric?
Probably a little of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't agree sometimes with school. And so if I ever got in trouble at school, I would have to come, go to work with dad. I couldn't stay home and play video games or whatever. So yeah, he just started dropping me off at different job sites, and I would say, well, what do I do? And he's like, well, whatever they tell you to do. And so I was the guy on the roof, just handing stuff to people.
Yeah.
And
how old were you?
I was gonna say, what age were you?
I was 13, going on 14.
That's cool.
And it was really like in the afternoons, obviously the weekends, school vacations, stuff like that.
Even in the summer.
Even in the summer, yeah.
Did you grow up here in
I did.
Arizona?
I was born and raised here. I used to go to my dad's office a lot, and I'd bug all the sales guys to go jumpstart. He had this old busted forklift in the back, and being a kid wanting to drive stuff, and so I think that started when I was 7 or 8 years old. I used to bug them to jumpstart it, so I can go drive around, and my dad would have me organize pallets or whatever. So
that's cool.
In hindsight, I don't think I'd let any of my kids do anything like
Really?
that now. Yeah, but. It worked out. It taught me a lot of lessons and skills.
Yeah.
That I have now. But yeah, just that's kind of how I started in the industry, and I'll never forget where I was. My dad was a talker, and that's where I get it from. And so, anytime we're headed home, like a 12-hour day, he's like, "I just got to make one quick stop," and because I knew it was gonna take forever. And I
think my kids maybe can relate to that.
Yeah. Sometimes I'd go in, sometimes I'd stay in the truck, but I still vividly remember the exact house. I can drive to it, where I was when I went in, and this customer was asking my dad questions about different, like what kind of shingle he should get, which manufacturer. And my dad, when he was answering, was saying things with information as if he's worked for each of these manufacturers for 30 years. And I vividly remember thinking, how can somebody retain that much information? Later in life, as I got further into the roofing industry, I realized it was passion. When you have passion for what you do, you're not really retaining the information. It's in you.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, from there, I fortunately worked for a company that really invested into us in terms of providing training, continued education, certifications, that sort of thing. And I just got really good. I was an actual installer for 12 years. Everybody else that I worked with on the roof said I was nuts, for not working in the office or in the AC or whatever. And then from there, I went into sales. And I didn't think I'd be able to sell a roof because I was too technical, but it turns out that helped. I was the king of repairs, though. So the owner at the time, my dad had shut his company down, and I was working for sales for another company. Obviously they want to re-roof houses, and I'm turning in all these tiny little repairs. And it's because I understand from a technical aspect, well, there's some things you can do to make it last a few more years. And that benefit is carried over. And he wouldn't dare complain about it because I think I sold almost $1 million just in jobs under $1,000 in 1 year.
Wow.
And that builds relationships because
For
people
sure.
trust you.
Oh,
and
for
who
sure.
are they going to call when in 2 years when their roof needs to be done?
Yeah.
For sure.
So after sales, I dabbled in operations. I started a roofing division for a restoration company. So that kind of gave me another avenue of experience in terms of operations, production, scheduling. And then from there, I had an opportunity to be a partner in a roofing company. And then that kind of gave me more of like the office, admin, accounting, corporate, that sort of experience. And then where I am now, I've owned Eco for 3 years on my own now. And all of the experience that I've had in my past, I think, is what has leveraged me to
That's cool.
do what we're doing now.
So how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. Terrifying. Scaling is always terrifying. But so when I started Eco, it's funny because I only wanted to do probably 1.5 to 2 million, never more than that. Keep it very small. And we did that our first year. And it was great, but I realized that I was never home. And the relationship with my wife and my kids, were being compromised in my eyes. My kid, I remember my son. So I have 5 kids and my son is he's our youngest. So we finally had our boy. And I remember he comes up to me a 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, and he says, Dad, are you going to eat dinner in your office or are you going to eat dinner, downstairs with us? And I look at him and I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? Because I was willing at that time, I'm just going to put it down. He just asked me the question. So of course I'm going to have dinner with him. And he goes, I want you to eat in your office. And he was coming from a place of caring because he knew that in his mind, that's where I needed to be because I was always there. And I was like, well, why? And he's like, because I want you to be able to get your work done. So he thought he was being thoughtful, but it really impacted me. And so that was the night where I had a conversation with my wife and I was like, we need to build a team, and it's been great because then it gives you an opportunity to provide for other people.
Yeah.
And impact more people in the community and stuff like that. So
That's really powerful, what you just shared. I love that you caught that lesson, right? Sometimes our kids teach us the greatest lessons.
Yeah.
I love going back to your story too, just how you came into this business through your family. That's super obviously near and dear to my heart with my dad as having been my mentor. I remember being a kid and literally going on appointments and sitting in the car waiting while he was in a listing appointment or whatever. And now the roles have reversed in terms of my kids being on the other end of that and coming in and hearing me have conversations just the same as you heard your dad, which I think is super cool. But the other thing that kind of struck me in your story was, I don't want to call them failures, but maybe lessons that you learned. But it sounds like just everything you learned and you took it and you grew and built upon it. And that's a huge lesson in business, right? It's not just taking maybe some of the knocks that come our way, but really looking at it as to how can I learn, how can I be better and go be better the next time around. And that's super cool.
Yeah.
So I've just heard just in the little bit that you've already shared that family is super important to you. What, if you could kind of talk to us about just your business philosophy in general, like how do you view your business? What are some of the things that are important to you?
So, so for me, like my biggest passion, and I remember when I told my team this and they were shocked because all I do is talk about roofing. And when I tell them, hey, my passion isn't roofing, and they're like, what? I think it was at one point, but then, as you go on in life and you do new things and you try new things, you start to, understand what really matters and what really makes you feel good. So my biggest passion is serving and giving. And I know it sounds cliche, but for me, I grew up, I always say I had everything I needed. I didn't have everything I wanted. And not in a selfish aspect. Like I had a new bike for Christmas. My dad found the bike in the alley. He painted it. He fixed the chain, put some new tubes in it, whatever. To me, it was a new bike. So I had everything that I needed. Plus some. I had, a great upbringing. But for me, as a young adult, starting to have kids, I can't remember how many times it's back to school season right now, and how many times I'd get this ridiculously long list, of 400 glue sticks and all these things, and I couldn't afford it. And being the prideful guy that I was, I would just send my kid to school with like a backpack and a new pair of shoes, and they just sneak right in while all the other kids are carrying their sack of school supplies. And I can't imagine how embarrassing that is for them. And so for me now to be in a position to, on a small scale, like help as many people as I can in those situations, those are what I love. I do a lot of really small things that I don't really talk about. I just put it on my social media, like right now I put it out there a few days ago that if anybody needs help with back to school supplies.
Have you had anybody reach out?
Yeah, usually we get about 7 or 8 people.
Nice.
And I just base it on how many kids they have. And whether or not, I keep it small because I know a lot of people have pride and a lot of people don't like asking for help. And most of the people that I get are people telling me about somebody else that they know. It's not the actual person asking for help. And I'm like, just send me the Venmo. And how many kids do they have too? Okay, here's $150. That should be able to get your stuff. I don't know what they're going to use it on. I don't know if they're going to get school supplies. I mean, that's on them and God. But for me,
There's some trust there.
I know that if there's an opportunity that it helps somebody, and the reactions that I get sometimes from people are what make it worth it and what make me want to keep doing it. We gave away a van.
A van?
3 or 4 months ago, yeah. So I still haven't posted the video. I'm so bad at that. So personally for me, that's what I'm at the phase of my life where I'm trying to overcome talking about the things that I do.
It's hard. That's hard though. We struggle with that too.
A
And
lot of
that's my
people.
team. They know how do we share this without it making it seem like, look how great we are. Right. But if your heart truly is to do good and give back, I think that's valuable for people to know the kind of people we are. So it's not necessarily for the kudos. It's like, who are you going to go into business with? Right.
Yeah.
Well, and there are many things that probably are best that you don't share.
Yeah.
But from a business standpoint, I think a lot of, at least the clients that we want to attract are the ones that want to do business with companies that give back, that do those things for others. So
Yeah. And for me, I get inspired when I see people I follow a lot of people on social media that do amazing things for people. And it inspires me. And so the way I try to keep viewing it and keep telling myself is if I talk about it, I might have haters, but they're not my people anyway.
Right.
And if I can inspire one person to do something like that, so the van we had, my wife got a new vehicle and she was never the van mom. She always hated having a van, and it was older. It was a little sun beat up and mechanically sound, and it was just for a couple of months parked on the side of our house. And
Can I say this really quick though? Super quick. Sorry. Total random sidebar. I had a minivan and I loved it. Like I secretly loved it because it was so big and cool. Like you had like the auto doors and stuff, but I like outwardly hated it because it's like the stigma. So
I think that was my wife because I'm like, this is cool. Like you have a TV in it, you have all this stuff.
Totally.
And like I wanted to get her a new one.
Yeah.
I was like, they make really
Right?
nice ones. And she's like, I just don't want to be the van mom.
Right. It's so
And
true.
I was like, all right, well, we had too many kids for that, so we need to figure something out. But so it was going to go to my daughter, my oldest daughter, when she turned 16, and then we ended up getting her another vehicle, and so the van's just sitting there, and me and my wife sometimes will go on a walk at night and just reflect and talk. And we were coming home and we saw that van, and it's not the prettiest thing. And I'm like, oh, what are we going to do with this van? And the thought of like taking the energy and effort into like what I don't even know how to do it anymore, like put it on Craigslist, something, sell it, and to get virtually nothing for it. I'm like, why don't we just like give it? Like we're never gonna. If somebody towed it, I probably wouldn't even notice. Like it'd be gone and whatever. So why not just give it to somebody? And I didn't know that I was going to have the reaction that I had, but so I just started putting it on social media. I videoed the van. I said, hey, I'm going to give this away. Like if you're if you have a family, especially if you're like a single mom, if you're struggling, whatever, you don't have a reliable vehicle. And we had 12 nominations.
Wow.
And there was 8 super solid ones, and it was really tough. It was probably one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. And I felt bad because I wanted to give them all a van, and because all their stories, and ultimately, so the video, and that's why it's taken so long for me to post it. It's actually really funny because when I finally called the recipient, she had gone to work, and I'm like, well, I gotta tell her, and I called and like spoke to their HR department, and it was like a super lockdown where she worked, and it was kind of comical. There was a lot of funny parts in the video of me trying to like get in touch with this woman. I'm like, they thought we were like a sweepstakes person, that we were outside. I was like, no, I just need to like call her after work. And I said, but I kind of just like called her and she's going to wonder why. So
Right.
I don't want to like waste the surprise on a
Right.
text, So, but it was really cool. We got the tires done, replaced, the fluid changed. And when the people that do our mobile oil changes for our fleet, when they found out that we were giving it away, they did the
that's
fluids for
awesome.
free.
Nice.
The brakes needed to be done. He identified that. They don't even do brakes. It's not even their service. But he's like, I know how to do brakes. I'm going to go buy the parts and do it for free for you.
Oh, I love
And
that.
so it was really cool to see
is
like kind of
cool.
the domino effect
Yeah.
of people helping out. But that's my true passion. And so my vision is with the company, obviously, it's the bigger the company is, employed with, more and more like-minded, team members, then the bigger impact we can have with more people.
That's really cool.
I really want to do like crowd fund, like that sort of thing. And I've talked to a couple of influencers that kind of told me some things to do it, but I'm like, it's not. So I'm getting past that identity, interaction with myself, and just doing it because I think that like the runner up for Who Is the Van, I was like, man, I bet if I crowdfunded within a year, I could probably
Right.
get her a wholesale van.
Right.
So things like that. I just
Right.
like helping people that
Yeah.
maybe don't have the opportunity to help themselves at the current time.
I love that.
know.
I think when you grow up and you experience sometimes being on the other side of like a blessing or generosity, it helps in wanting to be generous yourself, right? When you're in a position to be able to do that. One of the greatest things that we've ever done was, this was a while ago, our community had done like an angel tree during Christmas time. And I reached out to them and I said, just tell me what the greatest need is that you received. And I want to take care of it anonymously. We did. I didn't know what it was. They just said, this is how much it was going to cost. I gave them the money and that was it. Years later, I got an email. What we had ended up doing was paid a semester worth of college tuition for this girl who had lost her parents and her grandmother was raising her and couldn't afford to pay for it. When she graduated, she emailed me and like told me the whole story and how it was such a blessing to her. Like she was going to quit and give up, but we did that. And I was like blown away and I had no idea.
Yeah.
And it was the coolest thing ever to get to be a part of. So yes, we're doing these great acts and blessing that person, but we're equally blessed when we do it, which is like the thing that nobody talks about. You forget about how awesome that feels.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. And we totally have that same business philosophy about giving back, being generous, community service. It's just, to me, it's how we live our personal lives. So it only makes sense to run our business that way too.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've been blessed with a business that allows for that, so why not?
Right. And I think about that often too, is, I feel like the business is where it is and going where it's going, because of the things that we do. And what's one thing that I always say I accidentally find out, because maybe I don't think ahead of things and discover it later, is how cool it is that when when we hire team members, like we hire for attitude, for core values, if you match with them, great. If not, you're not probably a good fit. And so bringing in this culture of people, what I've realized is when they start to see like how intensely we give, because we talk about it and they probably know about it because most of the time they've done research, but when they start to experience that, it even heightens their level of mindset on how they give.
That's
and
cool.
then improves that, and it makes them look for other ways to give and serve. And I tell them all the time, like, you don't just have to write checks. Your time is more valuable than anything, and it's sometimes more impactful.
Right.
If you can pay for a painter to go paint someone's house for a
Right.
charity, or you can go paint it with your family and
Right.
your team yourself,
Right?
and probably do a worse job than a professional painter. But it's that time investment. And so there's so many different ways to give. I mean, I started out just doing roof donations. We still do those. Because I'm like, hey, that's the one thing I can do. That's the one thing I do know how to do.
Right.
And so we try to do one a quarter, a roof donation for somebody.
What does that mean? A full roof replacement?
Yeah. So if
Wow.
somebody, it's usually we come across enough situations. I'm largely empathetic, so I try to. My administrative team tells me to like stay out of sales because I just give things
Give it
away.
all
But
away. Yeah.
usually we come across enough people in the community that need roofing work that have us come out and look at the roof, and then we identify, maybe they don't have the means to take care of it to the extent that they need to truly fix it, or whatever that is, to where we haven't had to like go out and ask for nominations yet. But again, going back to being inspired by people, a buddy of mine, all of my friends are roofers. I'm really involved in the roofing industry, and a buddy of mine just did a roof donation for Memorial Day, and it seeing him do that gives me ideas. Seeing people do things like that gives me ideas about maybe a Veterans Day, doing a roof donation for a veteran or something like that. So we try to do one a quarter.
That's really cool.
But just the more he put it out there, and he doesn't he doesn't really post on social media that much. So by him putting it out there, I wouldn't have been inspired to get the idea. So that's what makes me think, the more I put stuff out there, then maybe that'll help inspire other people.
I love that.
For sure.
Yeah.
You kind of just made me think about this, that there is, just like in the real estate world, there's a lot of competition out there in the roofing community, right? And I think there's some that, I'm sure you can attest to this, that do it well and some that don't, right? What would you say in terms of playing nice with others in your competition? I know this is going to put you on the spot, but why should someone go with Eco Roofing?
Yeah. So, well, in terms of, playing nice with others versus, not, so there's the state association is the Arizona Roofing Contractors Association. My dad, when I was a kid, he always told me, you're not a real roofer in Arizona unless you're a member. It's $500 a year to join, and it provides free training for the entire company. So you can have a roofing company with 500 employees, and you can give them OSHA 10, OSHA 30, English, Spanish, forklift, fall protection, rigging, so many different kinds of training for 100% for free. You send 10 people to OSHA 10, it's $2,000. So for me, I understood that you're not a real roofer, because it's the roofers that are a part of ARCA is they're so giving to the community. We do monthly, charities or contributions to New Pathways for Youth, UMOM, Soldier in the Center, different things that we support, and all the roofers are just big givers. And so for me, the people that it's easy for me to identify what roofers I want to associate with, or are willing to, because if you're not a member of ARCA, are you educated about what it is? And if so, then we're probably not friends. You know what I mean? Because there are some companies out there that are very profit driven, very transactional, stuff like that. And it's a business, so I get it. But for me, there's a lot of companies that I've identified that share kind of the same values that I have, and definitely willing to work with them. For us, it's always tough because you're always just taking someone's word for it. But why I think, and what we preach to our team all the time, is I've had the privilege of being in the industry for 25 years. And I think we talked about this one day. So what I like to do is take all of the things that I've identified as bad that I've seen in the industry that roofers have done and continue to do, and I try to do the absolute opposite. And that's where I call it our excessive communication comes in. Is nobody, roofers, maybe they don't even show up to the inspection. And if they do, and they spend an hour, maybe they don't even send an estimate, or you got to call them 15 times for it. Or, you go with them and you have trouble getting scheduled, and then they just show up, make a bunch of noise and leave, and you're like, are they done? I don't know. And so for us, we have a position in the company called the Customer Experience Specialist, and she's great, and her role is essentially to make sure, I know roofing very well, but I don't buy roofs, so we want to make sure that the experience from the consumer standpoint, that they're having the best experience they can have. I always tell them I want to create the customers that want to buy a roof from us every month. You don't need a roof, every 30 years. But I want to hey, I enjoyed my experience so much that I want you to re-roof my house in the first of every month.
That's music to our ears, because just like roofing, there are many in the real estate game that are just transactional. And same thing, we get it, right? But for us, we want to create not just raving fans, but we want to be the realtor for life, essentially. So that's amazing. And I say this often. There are many people in the trades that are really good at the trade, but they are not good at running the business. And when we find somebody that can do both extremely well, it's huge, because then we are much more comfortable. I mean, extremely comfortable referring them to one of our clients, because now you are, or whoever that is an extension of our business. And that is huge. And communications, probably the first thing.
Yeah, communications, it's so easy, but people don't do it.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge thing. I mean, for us, like what I always say is like, you get us for life. You don't just get, we brand, the hashtag eco family, right? And it's because our employees, like we spend more time with each other than we do with our families. And so we are a family, and our customers, we want them to feel like the family too. So you get all of us, when sales sells a job, they don't just turn a file over to production and never hear from them again. We call them every single day during the process and check in with them. And sometimes they're like super appreciative of that. Sometimes they say like, I get it. Like, I'm busy, stop calling, But we just want to keep them informed. And we also want to make sure that if they have any small questions throughout the process, that there's somebody there asking for them so that they're not left to wonder.
Yeah.
That's good.
We feel the same. We tell our clients, we want to answer any questions that you may have before you even know you have them, right? I don't want them coming to us. We say that the worst thing is for our clients to come to us with questions, because it tells us we haven't communicated enough, right? So
I say put out the matches.
Yeah.
I tell my team, look for the matches to put out.
That's cool.
And that's like because somebody might have a small question that isn't, just a quick, simple answer could solve it. But then if you don't, then the match maybe goes to like a piece of paper on fire, and then eventually they're on Google and they're trying to figure things out, and because they haven't had a presence from us, making them feel comfortable, and it made them have to ask these questions in Google or whatever, and then they come up to us with a grenade.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you put out the matches, because some of the times, somebody comes to us with a grenade and we can still diffuse it just by answering questions, but it's like if this was consistently done throughout the whole process,
Never would have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about roofing, like specifically, because one question that's burning in my mind right now, we go to lots and lots and lots of inspection appointments, and most homes here in the valley have the tile or the clay roofing, right? What about asphalt, and how long do those last? So we can talk about maybe all three.
Yeah.
How long do these last?
So you probably get a different answer depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
But historically in Arizona, assuming it's installed correctly, any roof system, tile or shingles, should last about 30 years. Okay. There's other variables that come into play, like if you have massive 100-foot pine trees, like 2 or 3 of them hovering over your roof in a bunch of valleys, it's probably going to decrease, the life expectancy, unless you keep up on the preventative maintenance and keeping it clean and clear and that sort of thing. Which that's another thing, is a lot of roofers don't really educate the customers on what a maintenance plan is. Hey, we're done with your roof, but you should, because of these trees, you should have us out every couple of years to just blow it out or something like that, just to maximize longevity of the roof. Roofing is expensive. You want it to last as long as it possibly can. So historically, nowadays, the tile roof will last upwards of 30 years. Same with a shingle roof. Anything installed before 2006, because we had some code changes in Arizona, only has an average life expectancy on a tile roof anyway of about 16 to 18 years. So once you're getting close to that mark, and there's like 1 or 2 builders that took pride in their work and installed some of those things that were around but weren't required by code.
So like drip edge and stuff?
So that was part of the code change. It was drip edge, bird stop, and hip and ridge closure. And specifically the hip and ridge closure on like a high profile, like S-tile roof, is what makes the difference from 16 to 18 years to 30 years. Just that small, inexpensive product. But it took Arizona until 2006 to figure that out, or at least to enforce it. Shingle roofs, a lot of people go with tile. I don't see, outside of your occasional custom, any new construction shingles going up. And I think it's because there's about 5 manufacturers of shingles in Arizona, and they all, for the most part, have about the same colors. So say they each have about 6 colors, maybe 7 colors. It's not like you have 35 color options. You have 6 or 7, because one will call it amber, another one will call it golden amber. It's the same color, but just their version. Whereas tile, there's 3 to 4 different profiles that are locally manufactured in Arizona, and within there 50, 60 different color options. So there's a lot more opportunity to be unique. And even in track neighborhoods, because they're locally manufactured, that's where they'd get like, hey, we're going to pick 3 different color schemes and then put them in the whole community.
Do you do metal roofing as well?
Metal roofing is the one roofing system that we don't do.
Okay.
We have a phenomenal roofer that we refer out to that. I just personally haven't installed enough of it myself, or know enough about it to feel comfortable with us doing it. It's not something I would say falls within what we specialize in, and so I'd rather leave it to the people until we do specialize in it that actually specialize in it.
What would you say for maintenance? Like, what are some good, just general maintenance tips that homeowners can live by when it comes to managing and maintaining and maybe extending the life of their roof?
Sure. So shingle roofs, the maintenance is relatively simple. It's just sealing the penetrations, or at least making sure that they remain sealed. So your plumbing vents and stuff that go through the roof, just making sure those are sealed around the AC units. Tile roofs, broken tiles. Now, we don't really suggest that any homeowner get up on the roof themselves and look and replace them.
Because you have to know how to walk on them.
You do, yeah. Bottom 3 inches. And a big guy like me, I heel to toe over 2 tile and kind of strafe around. But the bottom 3 inches of each tile is...
So when you're walking, you don't put your foot sideways on the tile?
No, I put it sideways.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to. I just do. Or if the tiles are laid like that, I'll put it sideways.
Okay.
But you can walk in the pans of them. But the bottom 3 inches is the only place that's firm space, all the way down. Anything above that is hollow. Is like the gap of the underlayment underneath.
So would you go ahead?
I was going to say, so what I suggest is, I don't know of a roofing contractor that charges for inspections. So when you find one that you're comfortable with, hopefully us, but have us come out. I always recommend if your roof is 2 days old or 20 years old, every 2 years. If we have catastrophic monsoon, like where you come home and the trees are laying in the street of your neighborhood, then maybe call us out just an extra time to come out and make sure that nothing was impacted.
So every 2 years, and that's free
Free inspection, yeah.
Wow.
And then that way, and I say 2 days because we go on a lot of houses that
New builds?
barely got their certificate of occupancy.
There's
And
cracked
we
tiles
find
everywhere.
cracked tiles.
We had close to 30
Yeah.
on mine.
And the issue with that is it's not going to leak right away. And this is why homeowners kind of get the poor end of the stick, is because it doesn't leak right away, but the water can immediately has access to the underlayment. And I always say, think of the underlayment like body armor. It's designed to protect the home against leaks. Nothing's going to penetrate it, but at the same time, I've never done this, but I'd imagine if you shot the same spot of body armor over and over and over again, eventually it's going to make its way
Especially with
through.
UV rays.
Right, exactly. UV is way worse. It happens way faster with direct sunlight. But when you put new underlayment down, you have a new plate of body armor, but you also have to solve the problems. So broken tiles allowing water to get under the tile onto the underlayment obviously is gonna reduce life expectancy. And if you come out and identify that there's even 30 broken tiles on your house, regardless of what the age is, it's always better to have to spend a few $100s now to replace those 30 tiles. And people might not want to do that, but when they're like, hey, if I don't, that instead of 20 years from now, and maybe 7 to 10 years from now, I'm going to have to spend $20,000 to replace my underlayment. It's a lot better to do it up front.
Oh yeah, on one of my rental properties, as soon as I converted it into a rental, I had a roofer come out, and it was like a $1,500 repair, and he's like, Janine, you're so glad you did this now, because if this would have lasted even another storm, like this could have been way worse.
Yeah.
So sometimes, it's not fun to have to do it, but that preventative maintenance can be huge.
Yeah.
And
people don't think about it too. They don't think about like, oh, I need to have my
think
roof
it's
checked
done.
out.
Yeah.
Like it's not an exciting thing,
Right.
And I get it, and that's why we try to put on every social media platform, every outlet, everywhere we can, the information that I just said. Get your free inspections, and here's why. And if we go out there and there's nothing wrong with the roof, great. We don't view it as a wasted trip, because at the end of the day, like, we help somebody out and they have the peace of mind, they don't have to worry about it, and they'll call us out in another year.
With so many people here in Arizona adding solar to their homes, what are your thoughts on that and how that impacts the roof, and maybe some tips?
So I see nothing wrong with solar. There's always been like this clash between solar and roofing. And I think the reason why is because when solar started really coming around in Arizona, and even to this day, no like solar industry ever communicated with the roofing industry to say, hey, how do we do this? They'll say, I installed the base plate or whatever to the manufacturer's specifications. It's like, well, the manufacturer is a manufacturer of a solar mount, not of a roof system. So they don't really align or coincide with each other. And so for me, I think solar is great. I don't know a lot about solar. Like I don't sell solar, but at the same time, the way I see it is if your bill is going to be less immediately and every month going forward for the rest of your life, why not do it? But in terms of the correlation with the roof, it just depends on, as long as it's installed correctly, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. I always recommend, especially if your roof is newish, to maybe have a roofing contractor consult or work with the solar company. Or if you don't have a solar company, call a roofer and ask what solar company they work with or what they should use. Because if a roofer trusts a solar company, then odds are it's because, they know that they install it correctly. Right. Yeah.
That's really good. That's good.
Yep.
Good.
Awesome. This was fun. Anything else, Ryan?
What's your biggest challenge right now?
This heat, no.
I know, right?
It's incredible.
It is rough.
I
It really
think,
is.
there's always something that I find myself working on. I think my biggest challenge right now is, gosh, that's a tough one. I didn't even think about that.
Well, you talked about scaling. I figured you would say that.
Yeah, well, scaling is it's a challenge and it's not. It's exciting because it means growth, but it's also terrifying depending on the rate at which you're scaling. And we've scaled over 100% last year, and we're projected to scale over 100% this year, which is exciting, but also terrifying at the same time. And so I think for me, my biggest challenge is just maintaining the attention in the marketplace. There's so many roofers out there, and especially at a time like now where it hasn't rained in a little while. People don't have that sense of urgency. There's still people doing roofs. And I feel now for the guy who doesn't advertise on social media and doesn't post anything and doesn't market or network or anything like that, because I always wonder, like, man, I hope that guy is feeding his family still, and getting the work. But there's also like a new wave that seems like it's been created of roofers that are hungry and starting out and advertising and networking, and it's great. And maybe it's because I'm so involved in the industry that I see that, but I think the challenge that I always have is making sure that people are at least aware of who we are and what we can provide them. Again, doing it as long as I have, and my concept of doing things the opposite of what a lot of roofers do, and I mean that in the good way, is that I know the experience that people are going to have with us. We've had 3, and I'm not bragging because I still think it's the weirdest thing in the world, but also super cool. We've had 3 customers that we did a roof for, whether repair or replacement, reach out to us after the fact and ask if we're hiring, because they said that they enjoyed the experience with us so much.
Wow.
Like, this is real, and I'm still like,
That's the biggest compliment.
That's a huge compliment.
I never would have ever even comprehended that to ever be a possibility of happening. And so I know the experience they're going to have with us. And for the most part, I know the experience they're going to have with some others. And for me, it's just, the challenge is always to like break past the obscurity and break past everything else to kind of share with everybody what type of experience they would have with us. So at least they have that as an option.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
So Eric, how does someone get a hold of you if they have a roofing question or want to have their roof inspected? What's the best way to go about that?
Sure. So for roof inspections, probably there's 2 super easy ways. So our website is ecoroofaz.com, and there's a place where you can fill out some information. You can upload pictures if you need to, or you can always just email us at inspections@ecoroofaz.com. But if you ever just want to chat roofing, I'm happy to give out my cell at 602-435-6265. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This is good.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you,
sure.
sir.
Thanks for listening to The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. Make sure to follow or subscribe to the Home Selling Team on YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify to stay up to date with our podcast.